Schutz. Mr. Jester.
Here.
Ms. Romeo.
Here.
Ms. John.
Here.
Mr. Sharam.
Here.
Colonel Hassenloff.
I understand tonight, Mr. Beecham, we have several special guests.
We have many special guests, and we have several extra special guests this evening. So if you'll join me at the microphone, we'll make some presentations. I know those of you that have been on the board for several years and those of you that have been on staff for several years get tired of hearing me say, but boy, this is a great thing to get to do and a great time to be superintendent when you get to stand in front of all of you and talk about special young people like we're going to talk about this evening. We want to recognize 4 individuals this evening that have distinguished themselves as National Merit semifinalists, which puts them in the top 1% of students performing nationally. And it just is, it's a phenomenal achievement on their part, and we are really blessed to have these students and the support their parents give us and give them as part of our student populations. We have many wonderful students, and these students will tell you that there are a lot of students that they know and work with that work awfully hard, and that they feel very fortunate to have been selected and to have had the opportunity to be designated as a National Merit semifinalist. But I would tell you, yes, there are many other wonderful students out there. These students are the ones that met the criteria to distinguish themselves, and we want to give them the very special acknowledgement this evening. I'm going to deviate just a little bit from our list and the agenda. I'm going to introduce a young lady who has distinguished herself this evening, Jennifer Savelle. Jennifer, if you'll come forward, please. And you'll come right over here because we want everybody to see you on TV. And we don't want any, and I'm going to let Mr. Jester, if you'll present the certificate. Jennifer goes to Eisenhower High School. I'm correct, right? You got the right high school. I've been known to mess that up on occasion. And tell us what you're going to do. Tell us a little bit about where you're headed from Lawton Public Schools.
Well, the plan is to go to Cameron University. I'd like to major in elementary education and continue on to OU so that I can get my master's in library science and hopefully work as a public school librarian.
There's a good If I may, my apologies. Mom and Dad, will you stand up and let us recognize you as well? Please come just join her up here. Let's give you all a hand. As I'm sure you already know without me even having to say it, this is a family affair, and you don't just accidentally arrive at this point. You have a lot of support, you have a lot of love. And Jennifer, the one thing I would say to you, and I would say to all the students who are recognizing this evening, remember those that helped you. And someday, do the same for someone else, because that's what it's really all about. So thank you very much. Congratulations to you. Thank you. The next young man or the next recipient is a young man I would like to introduce to you. He's actually going to get 2 certificates this evening. He is recognized as a National Hispanic Scholar and also as a National Merit semifinalist, and that is Michael Felder. And Michael, if you'll join us, and if your parents will come with you, I won't make the mistake I made on the last one. And let's see, these 2, forgive me, I'm stumbling through those like I've never seen them before. Let me get out of the way. Please come right over here.
Congratulations, Juan.
Be with Michael.
Great accomplishment.
We're very proud of you. And Michael, why don't you tell us what you're going to do as well? Michael, I got the privilege of going with Michael and Stephen, who will be one of our recognitions in a minute, of going to Washington with them last year. And I came back smarter. I don't know if they did or not, but being in their presence for 3 days increased my IQ significantly. So, Michael, tell us what you're going to be doing.
Well, I plan to either attend Southern Methodist University or the University of Oklahoma, receive a degree in mechanical engineering, and then go on to get my PhD in physics, then build roller coasters, and then be a professor at a major university.
No If y'all will step up here and take one more picture of you. We're kind of camera happy, but we love these pictures and we want to remember these moments, so. Somebody has to build roller coasters, come on. And I want it to be somebody really smart. Really smart. Congratulations, Michael. Our next recognition this evening is Mr. Bryce Mitchner. Bryce is a student at Lawton High School. Come on up, Bryce. His parents joining him this evening.
Congratulations.
Bryce, tell us a little bit about what the future holds for you.
Well, I've applied to a lot of different colleges, but I'm not sure where I'm going to go yet. But I want to major in chemistry or biology and go the pre-med route to medical school. So.
That may be a little bit in Dad's shoes there to I want smart doctors too, not just roller coaster builders. Price, as you may remember on other occasions, we've seen Price at our board meetings for his accomplishments in his writing and things that he's done over the years. And Price, we're very proud of you. And we, as educators, I would say again to all of you students and parents, this is why we do what we do, so we can be with students like you. So, thank you very much, Price. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
And certainly, our next recipient, even though introduced last, that has no connotation whatsoever, Stephen. We just simply want you to come forward and be recognized as an outstanding student, and we thank you for giving us the honor of working with you all these years. And as parents, and if you recognize one of them, it's because she works with our other students during the day at one of our high schools. So we're extremely blessed to have both Stephen and his mom, who teaches at Lawton High, and Dad, no offense, but I mean, these are homies. These are our folks here. Stephen, tell us what you're going to do.
I plan on going to either the University of Oklahoma or I'm trying to apply to Harvard, and I want to major in either engineering or theoretical physics. So,
tell us what theoretical physics is, because it's all theoretical to me.
I'd rather not go into it.
Okay. and there's a sign of real intelligence, knowing when to go in and when not to. So, Stephen, congratulations to you, sir. I'm very proud of you. You know, again, these four represent the best of the best, and their families are everything you would ask families to be to support students. We have lots of wonderful children that we have the privilege of being with every day, and it's just a great thing to have the opportunity to recognize them and be in the presence of students who have not only given their best, that they've required us to give our best too. And we thank you for that. You bring out the best in us. Hopefully we've done that for you too. So let's give them all a hand if we would. And now I'm going to make them the lucky ones right now. We need to take some pictures of you in the hallway, but if you don't feel the need to come back in after the picture, feel free to go to dinner. Okay? So, thank you all very much. Thanks, appreciate it. Thanks. You're welcome. Congratulations. Congratulations, Becky. Scott, take care. Bryce, bye-bye. Bye, Paige. Get a cookie on the way out, okay? That's it. Bye-bye, Christina. Michael, good to see you. Bye, Stephen. Thank you for coming. Thank you all for being here. We'll take any kids you can bring to us, okay? Good. Oh, no. You hate it when it's the last one. It is, I know as board members you have an appreciation for that, but I can tell you as an educator, what a great feeling to be around kids that get it and make the most of it. And we hope that we can inspire many, many more to end up in the same place. As I said, we have lots of wonderful students.
Okay, very good. We have architect's report.
We do have an architect's report this evening. We have with us Mr. Jason Ridings and Mr. Clarence Williams from BWA Architects. They are the architects for the Fort Sill Freedom Elementary. What they will be doing this evening, and you may have seen some of the finishes that are in the hallway on the table. If not, I would invite you to look at them later. They're going to go over the final layout of the building, talk to you about just basically in general where we are in the process, and then a little later in the agenda I'm going to ask you to approve the final design so that we can finish the specs and we can put this on the street right after Christmas to be bid so we can start building in springtime, which is pretty exciting. We did have a meeting yesterday with the folks from the Office of Economic Adjustment, and Colonel Kennedy and Nia Hope from Washington were here. We had about a 4-hour meeting just talking about all the regulations and things that we're going to get very familiar with over the next 3 years. And it is an exciting time, but a challenging time. So Mr. Jason is going to speak first. Jason?
Well, greetings this evening. Thank you for having us. We are very privileged to be a part of such a really exciting project for Lawton Public Schools. It has been a ride already. I was thinking about this just this morning. Clarence and I came down in 2009 and sat with Barry Beecham and some of the other staff, and we began to talk about this need for a new elementary school at Fort Sill, and we have probably drawn 100 different options for the way that it's going to end up being, but we are so grateful for the chance to be a part of this and look forward to sharing the project with you this evening. So if there's any questions at all, please raise your hands. I'm more than happy to answer anything, but as Mr. Beecham did say, we're going to run through the project. We're going to start with the site plan and move to the outside of the building and then walk into the inside of the building and start to talk about that. We were here just over a year ago and went through some of these pieces of information with you then. At that time, you probably remember, we were going to take an amount of money, I think it was $8 million, and we were going to build the first of 3 phases of this school. Obviously, as you all know, the funding situation has changed dramatically, and now we are going to be able to take really 4 or 5 times that and do something that's going to be memorable for a long, long time. So without further ado, here is our first slide. This is a picture of the existing site at Fort Sill, and you can see to the left of the orange area, that's the existing Geronimo School. Geronimo Road Elementary sits there at the left-hand side of the property. The school has executed a lease with the DoD for the full extent of the property that goes all the way to Honeycutt, Geronimo, and then the dash line at the top and left-hand side of the screen. The orange area is the extent of the new campus, and you can see that a portion of that is actually built on top of the Geronimo Road Elementary School. And so what we have done is we have organized the work into 2 steps. It would all be done as one project, but it would be done in 2 different phases. And so the contractor would be able to, and I think I've got I don't know if you can see my pointer, but the contractor would be able to construct the right side of the school, and then the school would be occupied by the students at Geronimo Road Elementary School, as well as some of the new enrollees at Fort Sill as a result of the housing construction that's being done by the Army. So I think we said yesterday that maybe half of those homes are online now. And so we're already seeing the enrollment grow as those houses are being finished, as families are moving into them, and those elementary school students are needing a place to go. Well, right now they're at Geronimo and Sheridan in portable buildings, and some are inside the buildings. And so we would hope that really starting construction in this spring, in about 2 years, those students at Geronimo Road Elementary School, as well as the ones that have already arrived, they really should be able to move into the school. And at that point, we would be able to then tear down the existing school and begin construction of the last portion of the project. It's kind of up in the air at this point as to whether this building here would be built first or second. It's really just an issue of numbers, but we're thinking that it would be built first, and that way all the students can take up all of the space that's available. And then, again, we would tear down the existing school, and we would move into the second phase of the construction, which we're estimating would take about another year to finish that last section of the school building. And so, really 3 years from this spring, we're looking at the completion of the project. Let's move on. This is a representation of the finished site. And some of this may look familiar for some of you that were here, again, a year or so ago. But it has been revised and it's been updated for various things. I would first show you the building. Let's break that down. Again, in the center of the property is our school building. And the reason it has the shape it does is because we're creating these wings which are going to be exclusively used by one whole grade level, okay? So all of my first graders and all of my second graders and all of my third graders, they're each going to get their own building wing, and then we'll share the common spaces in the center of the school. We have vehicle access for the property at the front. Through Geronimo Road, we have a couple of driveways, and this would be our parent drop-off area. For our kindergarten, first, second, all the way up to 5th grade, our parents could use this space to drop off their children in the morning. There's also parking there. Some of that parking would be for parents, but the majority of it is going to probably end up being for teachers. There's about 125 potentially staff, something along those lines, in this school building. And that's going to grow depending on how many kids we have at different points in the phase. But we also have a drop-off area at what's the north end of the property. That's the left side of the screen. And that's a drop-off area that's exclusively for our 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds, our pre-kindergarten children. And so we have put that there strategically because this last building, which is labeled Building F, that's actually the early childhood area. And so in the morning when we have our youngest kids getting out of their cars and whatnot, and again, those are half-day programs, so they're coming not only twice a day, mom and dad, to get and pick up their children, but they're coming 4 trips, depending on when they're a morning or afternoon student. So by taking those students and sticking them on the other side of the building, we're avoiding a bottleneck situation where the youngest and maybe slowest children are not bottling up the very end of our drop-off area. At the back of the property, we have a bus loop. And right now, I'll go back to the previous slide, you can see that there's a driveway on the far north side of this property. Our bus loop starts right there. And there's actually a gravel road that runs behind the old school. Our bus loop almost follows that path until about this point, and then we build a new section to the back of the school. That bus loop is probably familiar to anyone who's looked at a property map of Central. That's the same type of bus loop that we have there. And that way we have our buses on one side of the property, we have our vehicles, our cars and things on the other side of the property, and we're not going to have a lot of confusion with that kind of a setup. We have some additional parking on the south side of the property. And you might remember, I'll go back to the previous slide, these are gone now, but there were a series of I want to call them cannons, but I'm probably wrong. There were artillery pieces on that hillside. Those are now gone, but that's a pretty big hill. It's about a 25-foot drop from the top to the bottom. And so because of that topography, these would be a terraced parking. So we'd have this parking level would be at one height, and then you'd have some stairs here and whatnot to get down to this lower section. And then you've got stairways to get from these parking areas down to really what's the flat section of the property. And so we've also got some athletic fields, some soccer areas, and then at the bottom side of the property here, the bottom left-hand corner, we have a detention pond. That's just a stormwater pond. It would mostly be dry. We'd only have it full of water if it was raining. And then we've got some play areas. There's 3 distinct play areas for this school. We have an area at the top here for our older children, and those would be our 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders that would be using that. There probably would be some playground equipment there, but you're also going to have some basketball hoops and those kind of things. And then you have another set of playground equipment here, which would be more for kindergarten and 1st graders. And then at the back of this building, Building F again, you have a fenced-off playground where our 4 and 5-year-olds again could go out and could use their own play area where they can actually be out, out there with the older children, but they would be protected from those kind of recess activities by a fence and things of that nature. So really this whole building now becomes almost a standalone, and we'll talk about that some more when we get into the building, but it becomes a standalone early childhood center. So let's go through the building areas. We have building A, B, C, D, E, and F, and those are very arbitrary names, but building A, which is here in the south end, that's a 2-story classroom building. There's actually, there's 10 classrooms in each half wing, so there's actually 40 classrooms in that building, okay? Yeah. So we've got, am I off on that? 44. Well, that's correct. We do have some computer labs and other things that are in there, but I'm talking about homerooms. You know, those are the kind of the classrooms I'm talking about. So we've got building B, which is our multi-purpose space. So we've got a kitchen. We've got 2 gigantic gymnasiums. Actually, each gym is 2 gyms that are separated by a curtain, and there's cafeteria space and stage areas in there, and that's where our bus loop attaches to at the back of the school. And then building C is this hallway that really connects everything together in one central corridor. The concept behind that corridor, and we talked about this last time we were together, is that just at Central, the idea that with a very few number of staff, we could monitor the school and watch hallways and make sure that people are where they're supposed to be, we can do that with this central corridor. And so everything comes to that corridor, and we'll talk about that more in some subsequent slides. Building D is our main entrance. There's an administration wing there. There's room for principals and lots of the administration staff. And then there's also a large media library there. Building E is 20 homeroom classrooms plus computer labs. And then Building F again is our early childhood area. This is a snapshot, of the floor plan, and the green color indicates all the circulation. So you can see what I was talking about earlier. We have a central corridor that connects all of these classroom buildings together. This is our 2-story building, so you see the first floor, and then you see the second floor right above it. And you've got this big multi-purpose space where there's some hallways that go back and around, things of that nature. These yellow spaces are our safe rooms. We have 4 safe rooms in the school. We have a downstairs safe room for our older children. This is, again, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. We have a central safe room, which is actually over our music classrooms, so that if I'm in a gymnasium or a lunch hour or if I'm in the library and I'm a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old kindergartner or a 1st grader, I don't have to go all the way back to my homeroom if there is a situation. I can go right to this centralized safe room. I've also have a safe room with these 4 classrooms in Building E, which I believe is our kindergarten wing, and then there's another set of 4 classrooms as a safe room in our early childhood area. So again, if I'm a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old and there's an issue or a situation, I'm able to stay where I am or go to another room in my hallway without having to walk all the way across the campus. And so that was an important part of where we located those safe rooms. And these would be FEMA safe rooms with shutters and all of the storm hardware and doors that make them very safe in the event of a tornado. And they all have bathrooms, so that if there's a long time where you're in there, there's a bathroom in each one. And actually there's more than one bathroom in each one. So these orange areas are multi-purpose areas, okay? I talked about the gymnasiums. This is one large multi-purpose space that we could divide with a curtain right down the center here. Another one's here. And then there's a stage, actually, at each end. At Building F, our early childhood area, again, there's a large indoor play area that would be a gymnasium of sorts for our younger children. It's also an extension of this building. If there was ever a need to expand the building, that is where you could put more classrooms and expand in that direction, just like the rest of the classroom buildings are. These blue areas are library and media spaces. So we have a large library media space right here up front, okay? And there's a circulation desk, and there's some story time areas, and there's lots of stack space, and there's a classroom for library activities and things of that nature. And then again, at the early childhood area, we have one room, which is really a classroom that's been taken over for a library space. And we would have books and things in there for our pre-K kids to get to have that library experience without having to walk all the way across the campus and make a big, field trip of it. They can do it right inside their own building. Moving on, these green spaces these are our home classrooms, and there's 70 of them. There's 10 in each. Actually, I take that back. I think there's actually 69. 69. We took one off of here and created a library, so you have to forgive the error on that slide. But we have these in all of the buildings, and this is a very efficient floor plan. There's not a lot of wasted space. So we have good-sized classrooms. They're tight together, and we've got 10-foot wide hallways, and these yellow spaces, these are special classrooms. And I'll go through them. These two here, and these two here, and these two here, those are computer labs, so that testing and computer activity can be done in the grade level area without having to go to a central space. These two classrooms here, and these two classrooms here, would be science and art rooms. These two classrooms in the middle, which did serve as our safe room area, those are our music rooms. And then there is a special library classroom for literacy and library type curriculum that would be done throughout the school week. This orange area is our kitchen, and this is a very efficient kitchen. It serves a cafeteria on its left and on its right. And so by putting the kitchen in the middle, we've been able to reduce a lot of the wasted equipment that you would have to buy to build two different kitchens. So we've made a little bit bigger kitchen than you would just have for one cafeteria, but we've made a much smaller kitchen than you would have had to make for two cafeteria areas. And so based on our numbers, and it will depend on the enrollment and things of that nature, but right now you could seat 350 students on each side of the kitchen for one lunch setting. And by staging those kids and kind of phasing them in, you could get through your 1,400 children, which is the enrollment potential of the school, quite efficiently. These blue areas are administration areas. You'll notice that in addition to the central one, there's more throughout the campus. Our main administration area is at the front door, where it should be, and we have a controlled vestibule at the front door. When you go into the school and it's the normal hours and school hasn't quite started yet, not a big deal. You can walk your child to your class, or you can leave them at the canopy where their teacher can escort them into the classroom. But when school starts, the doors lock, and they lock electronically. And with a school of this size, no custodian has to go around the school and make sure that all the doors are locked. No custodian has to make sure that the doors are left ajar. So these doors are actually automated. Now, they're not the automated doors that open and close like you would at the hospital or at the shopping center, but they do have electric locks. And so by creating a central vestibule here in the center of the school, when I come in from the dentist with my student, I bring them in late, I have to have eye contact with the reception area to be buzzed in to the school building. And so it creates a much safer school environment than some of the things we were able to do 10, 20 years ago. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 offices in this central administration area, as well as a conference room. There's a reception space for 4 staff, as well as a nurse station with 2 sick rooms. There's a large work room in the center of that work area for the teachers to make their copies and get their mail and do those kinds of things, as well as some staff toilets. Now, in each of the classroom wings, we have another set of administration area. And what we did is put a workroom in those classroom wings for the teachers to be able to make their copies and potentially eat their lunch, okay, without having to go to the central work area. There's also a space for a counselor's office with a window, so that if there's if there's a child in 3rd grade that they're working with, they don't have to go to the main office to have that appointment or what have you. So that office area is right there in the context of the classroom where that student is doing their primary learning. We also have a similar space at our early childhood area. So again, you can see as we talk about this building F, this early childhood area is truly autonomous. I mean, it stands alone. It doesn't have to rely on the other spaces, and that's why we felt comfortable putting that out at the edge of the campus. Okay, these are some renderings of the school. This is a view, and I'm going to flick back to some slides so that I can give you some context. This is a view from here, looking at the two-story building, okay? And you can see the classroom windows. You can see the stairwell here at the end. I didn't talk about that, but we can talk about that. There's a stairwell at this building A. There's a stairwell at the end of each classroom wing, as well as a stairwell in the center. And that's truly a requirement because of the number of students we're able to put in that building. And there is an elevator, that's correct. A two-stop elevator. Of course, all of the buildings that are done on Fort Sill, they're all done per a certain design standard. And so we will be using the Army palette of colors for the Southwest region. And that isn't, in my opinion, exciting, but it is something that gives us some context with the area. So, you know, Army tan and beige and taupe, I think they're all the same color, but we're allowed to use any color as long as it's taupe or tan or beige. So, and truly, we'll have our terracotta roof. We really will blend in with the remaining parts of the school. Of Fort Sill. There's quite a bit of construction in this area. They're building the housing units, and there's a new recreation center right across the street from where we're building. There's also some existing buildings. There's a hotel and things of that nature that are nearby, and so we're not doing anything that's necessarily ugly by any means. It's a very attractive school, and we're going to really love it when it's done. But we're not going to be reinventing the wheel when it comes to exterior colors. You can see here a view from the southeast, and that would be from here, looking down, and you can see the back side of this two-story building. This corridor that we talked about that connects everything together, it really is that tall. It connects all these roofs together, and it gives us a nice daylit space. We'll see some of that in another slide, where all of our children can move to and from the different areas inside the school. Here's a view from Geronimo Road of the front of the school. You can see, again, the color scheme, the hallway, again, that connects all those buildings together. It is actually constructed of concrete. And so we have a concrete wall on each side of that hallway, and all of our roofing, all of our other areas, they're shorter, they're tighter, and they go into the side of that. And so you can see here the front building. This is Building D, which is our administration and our library area. Our library sits behind this concrete facade. There's a front door here, and then we have some of our office windows here at the front of the school. These are extra front doors. Again, these would all be just like the main doors. These would be on the same system. So you can use those doors anytime as long as the school hasn't started. And when it does, those doors will lock and you will not be able to use them. Now, the teachers will have the access to the building with card readers and things of that nature. And so we will be able to do some neat things there. This is a snapshot of the library. And notice the books are empty, the bookcases are empty. But we've used some bright colors, and as Mr. Beecham said, we would invite you to see some of the exciting materials we're going to be able to use in the school building. The blues, the oranges, the greens. We're going to do some really neat things inside the building to make it fun for the students. The library space has a circulation desk, has a large stack area for our circulation material. There's also some smart boards in there. There's a story time area with a smart board so that we can have a whole class or two come to the library and actually have a story read to them, or potentially watch a video. There's also going to be potentially some furniture in there that's flexible, so that if a Boy Scout troop or if a PTA meeting wants to be in there as opposed to the gymnasium, those would be options that would be there for the school to take advantage of. There are some large windows in the space. And you can see here there's some some ceiling elements here, some lighting. It'll be a really dynamic space, a really fun space. These benches here are actually going to be where we'll have our search stations. So when I'm a student and I need to look at the catalog of books or what have you, or if I want to do an activity on the computers, these 3 columns here, 1, 2, and 3, I'll have a ring of computers around those columns for student activities. This window here, and I'm sorry, I keep shining my laser in this gentleman's eye. This window here looks into our workroom. So our librarians would have a work area, and I'll go to the plan. Again, this is our library. Our circulation desk is here, this curvilinear shape on the plan. Our story time area is down here in the corner. This large room here is a workroom for copying and all of the back of house work it takes to make a library function. We have some office spaces here, and as well as a classroom. That would be, again, for library purposes. Here's another view of the library. This is in a shorter section. You can't see it, but behind this corner there's a doorway into that classroom. And this is a picture of the multi-purpose space. Now there's 2 of these, and we're going to have one in one color scheme and another in a different color scheme. But you can see at the end of the gymnasium there's a stage, and we have some flooring that is going to be a sport flooring. It's a rubber floor that's got some cushion to it, so that if I'm playing dodgeball or what have you, and I trip and fall, it's not like playing on VCT or concrete or anything like that. But it's not wood either. It's just it's a good resilient flooring that's going to be good for our children to play on. We've got basketball goals. We've got some padding on the walls. You can see here we've got cafeteria tables. And these are the kind that fold up and go in a closet. And we've got a closet for those tables to go into so that the tables can be out of the way and we can use the whole floor for activities. We also don't show this, but I believe it's right in this area. There would be a fabric curtain that would roll down and would divide that gymnasium into 2. And so we could have 2 different classes going on, or lunch in one and PE in the other. This is another view of the gym from the stage, and you can see some of the same things. These doors here would open into the kitchen, and you would have a serving line in that kitchen that would be right off of the cafeteria area, and again, you have a serving line really on both sides of the kitchen. This is a snapshot of the main corridor that ties everything together. It's a very, it would be a very day-lit space. There's a material on the table out there that has been used a lot. We didn't talk about this in our presentation, but we are meeting certain federal guidelines with this project, one of which is some anti-terrorism requirements. Because we're building on the base, it's not so much about the source of the funding, but it really has to do with satisfying the authorities at Fort Sill. They felt that we needed to meet the same anti-terrorism requirements that their buildings do, because we have a huge amount of children in a tight space, and so that's a reasonable request. So we're going to use some windows in the building, and all of them will be blast-rated, which is engineered and specialized for all of the different requirements that Fort Sill gives us for that. We also are using on the roof of this a translucent sky roof. Now this is a way to bring daylight into the hallway without using glass, and putting glass up high and putting glass in the walls. And so you might look at that material on the table if you want to, but it's an anti-terrorism compliant material. And so we've looked at this in the computer, and obviously want to save money wherever we can. These lights would really be off almost all day, because we're going to have so much daylight in this area that it's going to feel like you walked outside when you walk up and down this corridor. We've got some bright colors here, and there's some other things going on. You can see here, because of the volume of the space, we wanted to be sure that we didn't have a very reverberant area. A lot of the echoes that you would have like in some big open volume spaces. So we have some acoustical baffles up here at the top, and these are just a plain gray baffle, but we might throw some color in there, and we're showing some oranges and some blues and things of that nature. Here's some lighting that runs right down the hallway. And that really brings me to the last slide. Does anyone have any questions?
That's a tough act to follow. Talk about the requirements for LEED and why some of the things that we're doing are so important, such as the natural light.
Sure.
In order for us to comply with grant requirements.
Correct. Correct. I talked about the anti-terrorism requirements as not being so much because of the origin of the funds. Well, this idea of environmental sustainability, that does have to do with the source of our funds. And because we're using federal dollars on this project, and a significant amount of the project at that, one of the requirements is that we meet what's called the Leadership in Environmental Energy Design, which is LEED, L-E-E-D. And so LEED is a program that is not new. It's been around for 10, 12 years maybe. And there's a group out of Washington, D.C. that runs this program. And it's all about making the building as energy efficient as it can. And the way this benefits the owners, which in this case is the school district, is that we're able to take this money from the federal government and put it into a building which costs a lot less to run. And so 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, the utility bills and the running the lights and all those things, the cost to do that will be less because we've met certain initiatives that are laid out in this program. One of the things that we are doing is we're using good insulation. We're using good windows, okay? Now, good is a very subjective word, but we actually are modeling the building in the computer, and we're looking at every day of the year. We know already what days are the hottest and what days are the coldest, but we're able to tell how much money it's going to cost to run this building. We're looking at the most efficient way that we can heat and cool the school. One of the things we looked at doing, and we're not going to do it actually, we looked at doing a ground source system where we run water into the ground and we heat that and cool that necessarily by the ground's temperature, and we're able to run pumps all day and use the Earth's energy to heat and cool the building. There were some restrictions on that. The Army has encountered some minerals at shallow depths, and so we're only going to be able to go a couple hundred feet deep. Well, to make one of those systems efficient, you really need to be going 400 feet deep. And so we felt like that wasn't a really good use of the money. And so we're going to use a cooling tower system, which will run conditioned water through piping through the whole school. And by doing that, we're going to actually be a very efficient school. Now, it won't be as efficient as ground source, but it's not going to cost nearly as much either. And so we've had to look at all these things and try to narrow down, if you will, which things are worth the money and which things are just a gimmick that we aren't really going to get a return for our money on. And so, some other things that we've done, and this is just stuff that is required, but it didn't cost a lot. There's a shower in the school. We don't have PE, where we need to change our clothes, but there's a shower in the school for teachers to ride their bikes to school, and there'll be a bike rack. There'll be lots of bike racks, but that's there as part of a federal program. Other things that we've done are we've put lighting controls in the building. So when the building is lit by the sun, the lights turn off. We've also put some technology systems in the building. One of the it's not one of the biggest costs that a school encounters, but I'm sure that the folks at the media center could talk to you about buying lamps for projectors. Teachers leave them on. They stay on all day, and maybe the next day. And if it's a weekend, they're still on when they come back to school on the Monday. We've put in a system that at 7 o'clock, all the projectors, they all turn off. And that's going to make our lamps last longer. It's going to save the school money. We have the money now because of the federal grant to do some of these things, which we wouldn't normally do, and that's going to make the school be less expensive for you guys in the years to come. Any other questions?
Yes. Oh, go ahead. Okay. I have a bunch of them. You want to go ahead and go? Go ahead. All right. Can we go back to slide number 1, please? Actually, slide number 2.
Sure.
What is the purpose of putting the parking lot there on the other side of the athletic fields. Did it have to do with the topography? Because I'm concerned of kids maybe, or, you know, trying to cross to the athletic field and then getting caught up in the parking area.
I see what you're saying. Are you talking about this parking area?
Well, both
Both of them?
that, yeah.
The topography out here isn't flat, as I said earlier, and so that really drove the places where we could put the parking. This isn't a flat section here,
Okay.
but by terracing it, we were able to actually create some flat spaces and create enough parking spaces that was reasonable for the amount of school activities that we have. I think we've got, I want to say we've got, and I'm sorry I don't remember this, I want to say we've got just under 200 spaces.
And how many students will that school serve?
And I'm actually misspoken on my number. The school will serve 1,400 students. And so we've got, and we also have to think about grade levels, you know, and it's not going to be simple every year. Obviously, some time your fifth grade class is the smallest class in the school, but if we had 200 fifth graders and there was an activity where the fifth graders were going to have a musical or some kind of a holiday program, well, if half of the households showed up, which might be reasonable, then that's 200 moms or 200 dads or a mixture of both. And if 1.5 showed up, then it'd be 300. And so I need to get my numbers straight, but we have enough for the staff and parents during the daytime, and we have enough for most of the parents, basically, of one grade level, or for an evening activity.
Only one grade level?
Yes,
Okay.
that's right.
So would you be able to, I know currently some of these bus loops that we have fire lanes in them due to
Yes.
code. Will that also be a fire lane, or will that be able to be utilized for parking, maybe in an evening event?
That's a good question. I might have to look into that a little bit more.
Okay.
As far as the fire lane goes, there's obviously we can't block the curb, and there's another issue there is that anti-terrorism requirement. Not only will we mark the curbs for no parking fire lane, but also no parking.
Park
This
so
is not a
close to
loading
the
zone.
building.
Yeah, too close to the building. So.
In our other bus loops, right now we have a similar situation with the fire lane and where they're not able to park in those areas. There is absolutely no way to build enough parking to handle the whole building.
Correct.
And so by building the front parking lot where we've got parent drop off and so forth, we're hoping most of the teachers, you can see those are islands that are in there, and it's hard to tell. Most of the teachers will be able to park in that area and enter through that. And the other parking area should just be overflow parking, and for the most part, not being used on a
Daily basis.
It will be an event parking
Correct.
area, if I can say that.
Let me ask this. Do you see where the pre-K drop-off is?
Yeah.
Sometimes pre-K parents will stay. Where will they be able to park? Will they need to park in that lower parking lot, or?
They'll have to come back around to the front if they're going to stay.
Okay, and they go in through those doors, the
Yes,
vestibule?
and they can bring their child in through the front door. Would you mind if I
No.
stood up for a second? Jason, can you go to the next slide? Let me. Yeah, they can bring their child in. This would be the design is to use this section as the early childhood wing. Again, pre-K is a half-day program, so with six classrooms, you can serve 250 kids roughly. So we'll have kindergarten and first grade over here, but the primary drop-off will be coming in. That loop really comes right up into this area where they can drop them off and they don't have to get out. We'll do similar to what we do at Learning Tree, where we assist them in getting the kids in and out of the car. If they don't want to do that, they obviously can park and bring them in through any of these orifices in those buildings. This wing will be pretty much first and second grade. We may have to put a few kindergarten classes right in this area, depending on, again, as class fluctuations. This wing is a single story, and I'm sorry, this is a single story. This wing is a double story, and it will be third, fourth, and fifth grade. And again, there are roughly 40 regular classrooms in there, which again, at 20, that's 800 kids in that area, plus computer rooms. Plus, we anticipate using these as science labs, and Jason's gone through all of that. But with the dispersal of the students throughout the school, we're really going to have a campus of buildings rather than a building. And the spine is just simply to make movement between those safe, warm, dry, and all of that. One of the things he did not talk with you about, in each wing there are offsets where students can be pulled out. There's some small concave walls. The concave or convex? Okay. Shouldn't ask an architect a question like that. Small concave walls where students can be pulled out, worked with in an individual setting at some stations, or they can actually just be pulled out for a conference with the counselor, just real quick, if there's somebody's just checking on. Or mom and dad might come up, and that would be a place for them to have their child, God bless you, to have their child where they could have them out there. And those are in each hallway as well. Trying to think of the other things that we did real quickly.
Is that central corridor going to be wider than the corridors that go down into each wing?
They're all, I believe, these are 10-foot. What is the central corridor, Jason? Is it 16 to 18 feet because of the track? Okay. And this, when we're finished, if you would look at the lighting panel that's out there, because it's about this thick, and this will be a bright area, even though when you look at it, it looks like a big concrete wall. It's going to be a very well-lit area, and I truly, it's exciting to see the things that can happen. But one of the things I wanted to point out is in this vestibule where they come in, they either have to go through the office and check in, or they can be buzzed through. Now, obviously, if Johnny has to go to the dentist once a week and to the orthodontist, and mom brings him, pretty soon we know Johnny's going to be in at 9 o'clock instead of 8:45, and they can just see him, buzz them in, and let them come through. But if somebody that we don't know comes in, you don't get buzzed in. You're forced to come through the office. And so being able to lock it down and take care of the security, being able to have the storm rooms, and remember, when you talk about a safe room, you're talking about someplace you hope to have children less than 30 minutes, because you're basically saying you've got 4 square feet for each child in there that they can stand in. That may not be the right number. What is the number? 5 square feet. I'm sorry. And these classrooms are the same size as the ones you've been seeing in our other editions, so you know they're big classrooms. But there will be a lot. There's 12 in this wing, 6 upstairs and 6 downstairs. And is that right? That's not right. There's just 6 downstairs, and then there's 4 in those. So we should be able to get all those students in there for a short period of time without too much discomfort. Plus, with the bathroom being in there, that alleviates some of the issues that we've encountered as we talked with other districts that have done the same thing. The building, if I sound excited, it's because I am. I think it's going to be a marvelous place for children. Right now, the way the enrollment is going, we look that we will come in at about 1,250 based on the housing as they've moved in out there, which is even better. That gives us a little room for growth. We do know we have a large special needs contingent at that building that will put just 10 children in 6 or 8 of these classrooms, so that'll cut your capacity down quite a bit. But for the most part, what we've done is we've designed this building is try to look at the best practices we've used elsewhere, like the central bus loop. The bus drivers and the transportation folks and the schools will tell you that's the best place in town to drop off and pick up kids. So we tried to replicate those kinds of things throughout this building. You can stand one person here and nobody can come into the building that you can't see except in these places. So if, in essence, if you stood one here, one there, one there, one there, 6 people, you can see anybody that comes in the building at any given time, which is 6 people. For a 210,000 square foot building, that's pretty good visual access, not to mention the fact that it's got the electronic locking system and so forth. So, but maybe the most exciting thing about it is these will become independent schools. Things that are for intermediate children will be in the intermediate wing. Age-appropriate activities will be over here in the primary and the early childhood wing. And it just simply allows us as a staff and as a district to do the kinds of things. Instead of trying to take the little kids and make them fit into the same kind of programs or same kind of facilities as the bigger kids, they now have their own space. They now have their deal. So, excuse me for...
Main corridor that's going to allow light to come through.
That's a That's a, yeah.
I
that's
got
a-
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Beecham will grab that. That's a fiberglass sheet across an aluminum extrusion with a fiberglass sheet on the bottom. And so it's insulated, but it brings daylight in. It's diffuse. It's not a window. It's not made of glass, but
And that's in the upper portion of the
it's at the top part.
sidewall?
That's correct. That's right. You know, the way we've designed this hallway, we have a concrete wall panel that is 5 inches of concrete. It's 2 inches of insulation and 5 more inches of concrete, and those are made in a plant and brought down here on a truck. They'll be erected and set up end to end, and we will have a very long-lasting building material there that won't require any maintenance at all. Won't even be painted. We will paint the lower 10 feet or so, inside and out, so that if a kid rubs against it with a cart, or if someone was to tag it with spray paint, we could paint it, but from the 10 feet up to the tippy top, it's nothing but concrete, and so there's no reason to have to go out there and paint it every 10 years or anything like that.
Has UV
Correct.
coating on it?
It is. It's UV coated. It's got, 20-year warranties on pretty much everything, color, water, everything like that. It's going to have the same kind of warranty as you're going to have on your roof, your standing seam roof. So every roof on this project is either a standing seam metal roof in that terracotta color, or it's going to be that fiberglass roof.
This is going to make noise if it gets rained on or hailed on.
You would hear it. You would hear it in both buildings, because, it's going to resonate through the metal panels, just like it's going to, and I'm sure you hear that in your other schools right now when you have a bad
Yeah.
rainstorm. If you get rain, which isn't very often here.
Well,
Not enough, but
if it ever rains
And what
again.
they not told you is that their office has these panels
yeah.
in it, and I believe you told me, how long have they been there,
Well,
Clarence?
it's been 1981, and the good thing about the panel is that, forget what the exact weight is, but you can walk on it very easily, without any problem. Our building, has been hailed on numerous times, golf ball size, that thing. Never broke a panel. Dropped a baseball, but, no matter what was put up there, it dropped baseball, stuff like that. Periodically, that doesn't happen. As well, doing exactly what we're talking about, the why, it goes completely down the giant corridor from one end to the other. And the color ability now is much, much better. In other words, 20 years from now, it's still going to be like that. The older version that we have in our building and the Y has, a little bit, you can see a little, it's not that bright color. They also now have the ability to come in and actually sand the top and bring the coating right back to where it was, which I was impressed about. When we put it in our building 1981, this is what it was, and I stood on it. We've had in our building one leak, and that was at a joint where it butted up against the wall like this, and that's been it. So the panel itself, when it butts up against the panel, doesn't leak. The system that they use is really, really good, and that's something that's real important. Okay, that sounds.
Exterior doors there are, and where are they located near the play areas? Because
Yes. Question. We have a lot of doors on the outside of this building. I'll go to the white screen here. Exactly.
are they kind of like the two double doors
Yes.
that we have at MacArthur?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that large.
the double doors in the front of the Shoemaker Center, they're no different.
Okay.
So we've got a
So they'll have
pair
a
of
little waiting
aluminum doors
area.
with
Okay,
a big
great.
window. And you've got them here, 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 there, and there. And your playgrounds are here, as well as there, as well as there.
Okay.
And
While we're playgrounds. I have a concern about the two-story building. The children have to go across a driveway that's active with deliveries.
They do. We have a crosswalk. Our deliveries won't be there. Let me start off by saying that. Your main deliveries are going to be for food. And we've
Right.
met with the food service director, Mark Coulter, and he's communicated to us that what he's going to do is use that bus loop for his deliveries, and he's going to schedule those for when the buses aren't there. So the bus loop will actually be where he brings his deliveries in, and we actually have created some curb cuts and things back on the loop where a large dolly could be loaded off the back of a hydraulic truck. You know, we don't have a loading dock here, but if you could lower your hydraulic truck down and they could wheel that material, food, beverage, whatever, into the school building. But you're right. Let me go to that site plan and I'll show you what we have done is created a raised crosswalk. You don't see it in this drawing, but when you go to Will Rogers Airport, for instance, you know the raised speed bumps that are the crosswalks? We have those here. And so if a school, that's not going to obviously stop.
Flying through there.
Exactly. But it's a raised area where the children can walk straight across that, and it is a speed bump. And so we have those even here. But there's a small, you don't see it very well, but this is surrounded by a fence. And so when I'm in the play area, I'm safe. And when I walk out with the escort, a teacher, I'm safe, in theory.
And what about fencing around the detention pond? Even if there's no water there,
It
there
will
will
be
be
surrounded
fencing?
completely.
Yeah, the front fence, and we discussed, we will look at a wrought iron attractive fence.
Right.
And then you've seen the cyclone fence that have the black PVC on it that would be around the back edges of that
Okay.
in order to make it attractive. I think it's important we talk about the detention pond for just a second. That is something that is required.
Correct.
It basically is misleading to say it's a pond
Yeah.
because it's really
It's a
just a catch
depression.
area.
Yeah.
Correct.
So that it can flow in there and then it will have a drainage flowing out of it. But it will be the point where you do the collection of the water, and that's required by all sorts of standards. I don't
Sure.
know all the guidelines on that. But it won't be, we won't be fishing in it. I mean, it's not going to be a mini Lake Helen or whatever. It is something that should, in our area, should be dry 95% of the year. Plus.
Yeah.
And unfortunately.
And more.
Yes.
If I could talk real quick about the other fenced areas, we have around the pre-K drop-off area, this whole field here, okay, that's all fenced. So at recess and things of that, those times of day, again, we have our early childhood playground that's already fenced, but between this and that there is a fence, but then all of this is fenced off. So that can be used for kickball, and we have a playground for the primary children inside of that fenced area.
Mrs. John, to go back to your question or your concern about the play area, there wasn't any place to put a play area where you didn't have to cross some type of
Concrete.
drive to get there because of the way the land is laid out. You can see below those athletic fields on the end there, there's a nice area, but that again there's a considerable slope there and you would have to go across
Correct.
that drive to get there. We're hoping that we can go down. Basically, you want to show them where we're talking about?
Sure. We've got a sidewalk and a staircase that's kind of built right now off of the property. There's a very flat area. It's about 6 or 7 feet down from the bus loop. And the good thing about that is that right now it's off the lease area, but the Army is very agreeable to letting the school include that in their lease. And you could stand on that bus loop with 1 or maybe 2 teachers and you could watch a whole mess of kids. I
And
mean,
it's between the two drives, access to it's between the two drives.
Correct.
It's in a floodplain, so we can't do
Build there.
anything.
Building
Correct.
wise.
We can't build there, but we
Right.
can potentially use it, and
What
so,
about-
yeah. This area here is protected. You walk out of your gymnasiums across the sidewalk and go to that sidewalk where your staircase is down to that play area, right out of the cafeteria. So
What about washer and dryer areas? Do you have any hookups or any areas that will be allowable for washer and dryer?
we have a place for some for those kind of appliances in the kitchen, where the kitchen staff would do their laundry.
Well, just sometimes in the younger grades, you have a problem with, students
Sure.
that need to have their clothing washed, and I just wondered if
Yeah.
we were going to have an area like that in the smaller...
Now, we don't have that in the plan right now, but we can work that. We can develop
Yeah,
that.
that would be something you could put in a workroom, probably you don't want to do too
And
much of
shower.
that because of the extent of the, yeah, and, you know,
And you
I-
had
I
said
mean,
a
we
shower for teachers, but will there be a shower for a student?
Well, it could be
if
used by anyone.
need
It could be
used by anybody,
Okay.
sure.
one of the reasons that's in there, the lead requirement is kind of an unusual requirement as you look at it. You're awarded points for certain things you do in your building, such as that type of light coming into a building. You get so many points. We have to meet what is called the silver standard on LEED. In order to do that, we have to have X number of points. So we have to have, and we'll have a commissioning agent that comes in and looks at the building, and will say, okay, you get points for that because you did that. You know, they will actually work on this building 10 months after it's opened, making sure that we have met all of those things. But we could look at, and the shower is one of those things that gets us a LEED point, so example. But that's also an area where you're bringing plumbing, and we can look at doing something adjacent to that. It's never a bad idea to have a shower facility in any building where you might have science projects, or you might have students that get into, I'm going to say a chemical, or into some type of poison ivy or anything of that nature, you know, where you would want to rinse off. But we can certainly look at that. We try to put a washer and dryer in all of our new buildings that we build. Of course, we don't build very many new ones, but we've tried to incorporate them into most of our old ones. That is actually one of the most commonly requested things by principals. You know, and we get, I'll put in a little plug here, we get a lot of people that as they replace their washer and dryer because they want a new one because of the way it looks, not because the other one's totally worn out, they are offering us the opportunity to have that. And that's a great thing for kids, because many times kids do manage to find the mud puddles, and sometimes when they get to school, they've already, you know, they already need a change. But it is a great thing, and we'll look at that aspect of it. We hadn't talked much about that, but you can also use what's in the kitchen. I know at Central, that's what we use. Over there, we have a washer and dryer in the kitchen that's used not only for the items the kitchen staff uses, but for anything any student needs. So.
One more thing I'll mention, we didn't talk about this in the presentation, but I said that the main area of the site is flat. It's not absolutely flat. We actually have a grade change, so when you go from one end of the campus to the other, you're actually stepping up, and we've got some of the hallways are sloped a little bit. They're not sloped necessarily like a ramp is, but we have a 2-foot drop, you know, a 2-foot transition, I'd say, from, you know, between these two buildings, and so we contain all of that in our hallway, and it's an accessible, you know, an ADA compliant slope and those kind of things. We have another one here, a little bit tighter of an area, and so we do have handrails on that. But we also have doors out of the corridor for fire egress. So there's doors on the end of the classroom buildings. There's doors at the ends of the main corridor, and then there's also doors along the corridor to get out in the event of an emergency. One more thing we have done is we've used that main corridor as a way to separate the building in the case of a fire. The concrete construction gives us an excellent barrier to the movement of fire inside the building. And so when I come into the main doors of building D of the school, here and here, I have a full-height coiling fire door which separates the central space from the classroom area. So if I'm in an evening activity with a key, I can turn that door and shut that, and now all of my classrooms are completely separated from the activities. I don't need to worry about a mom or a dad wandering into a place that they shouldn't be, or a kid doing that. So that's a way that we can control the personnel within the building after hours. So.
We'll move on down to make the motion. Jason, thank you very much. Clarence, thank you. Appreciate the presentation. I'm sure as we think about the plans, there may be a few more questions that we want to ask down the road, and things the board will bring forward, and I'll forward that information to you. I know we'll be seeing a lot of each other the next few months.
Plans for each of us, a version of them. Do you have a copy of them for us?
We can print this off for each one of you, make you a set in color so you can see it.
Great.
We will do that because we've got it. It's a PDF file, isn't it? Okay. Now, we'll just simply print all of that off and make each one of you a packet so you can have it. We have a few packets that we will put out in each of the 2 schools that are out there. Right now, it looks as though we will be going to bid right after the first of the year, sometime around the middle of January. Hopefully, we will do about a 5 to 6 week bid period. It's only 20 days is required, but because of the size of the project, we want to make sure there's plenty of time for people to ask all the appropriate questions. We'll do a pre-bid conference, qualify anybody that wants to bid. We'll bring it back in, review the bids, bring those bids to you to be accepted or rejected depending on whether they come in the money. Hopefully, around the 1st of April, we're digging a hole out there to start this. Around the middle of March, however, we want to have a huge groundbreaking ceremonies, and we're trying to arrange to get the Undersecretary of the Army here because he was instrumental in helping us work on this. We also, Senator Inhofe and others have indicated they want to be part of it. So as we try to get everybody's calendar balanced and get them back, we'll do that. But I think the one thing I would say to you is I think that for the next 20 plus years, the educational facility at Fort Sill should be on the front end of things, on the cutting edge of things, and be adaptable to whatever comes along. And that will be a tremendous plus because that will allow this district, in my opinion, to focus their resources to help us in town do some things we need to do here as well. So we've been blessed with this grant, which I love to say is $37,134,368. I said at night and mumble that number just because I'm still amazed, but it is a tremendous opportunity, and I think we're going to provide our students with a wonderful building to serve them for a long time. So, guys, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Barry, do we have a departmental report tonight?
No, I thought after the architect and the thing we might do that. I do have a nice departmental report for you next time. I think you'll enjoy it.
Okay.
I would ask that we maybe change the order. We have some youngsters here that have indicated that they may be getting a little tired.
If we could, I would ask you if we could do item 7A, which was to do accept what we've just been presented as the final plan. And then I was going to ask you to skip down to 7D, so we could.
Very good.
We could do that. So I would ask you to consider taking action to approve the final design. And as I said, we did meet with the folks from Washington to do the specifications that are very, very specific specifications of measurement. But the things that we'll make sure get done so that the project will be as hitch-free as we possibly can make it. We want it to be a great experience.
I make a motion that we approve the final design of the Freedom Elementary at Fort Sill.
Second. Call roll, please.
Ms. John?
Yes.
Mr. Sharam?
Yes.
Ms. Romeo?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
Thank you very much. As you have suggested, Mr. Jester, I think going to item 7E would be a good one. If Mrs. Maudlin, if you would come forward and
Wake up your
and lead us through
models.
the remainder. Was that you that yawned while that's I think he probably expedited or shortened that presentation by at least 20 minutes.
Before we start, I want to thank the children in the audience. I don't know about you, but I have not seen a better behaved group of kids in a very long
That's
time.
exactly
And so,
right.
moms and dads here, you should be very, very proud of your kids. And thank you for bringing them and helping us participate. I'm here to report on the update on the district uniform policy. As you know, last year about this time, I came to you with the concept of moving to possibly having some pilot schools do uniforms, and you joined us, and very few remember, I was pretty neutral about the idea. I wasn't really swayed one way or the other, but I thought let's give it a chance. So as we're doing with everything else in schools these days, I'm going to give you a grade. And if I had to grade the uniforms, I would say A, maybe minus. Probably the principals might argue that it's a straight A, but I will tell you, I think it's absolutely been a success. And I think part of the success is if we really had to talk about our uniform code. We would probably call it a modified dress code. I think part of the success, or probably the biggest part of the success, is that's the way we approached it. And I'm going to remind you, I ran off. A copy of the PowerPoint that I presented that night to give you an update of just a reminder of what uniforms look like in our school, or as I said, a modified dress code. I probably, at this time, we have about 1,500 students that wear uniforms every single day to school. Actually, the number is 1,444 for Mr. Beecham, the detail person, but I rounded it off to about 1,500. And if I had to talk about the complaints or concerns from parents in that, I would say it's less than 10, and maybe less than 8. I've tried to remember all the talks and discussions I've had since we initiated this policy. Maybe had a few last winter that I'm not including, but if I started with last summer, I probably had 3 or 4 parents call with some concerns. And they were parents that were concerned about the cost or the access to uniforms. And we were really, really beneficial and lucky to have most retail access in our town to buy into the idea of providing uniforms throughout the city, even to the point that I called Goodwill, and they were more than willing to put and still do, have a rack of clothing for our kids. The cost we found is actually probably less than what they would have to pay to go outfit in a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, and parents may talk to you or agree with that. So that issue or concern really was before they had even purchased, and once we started the program, throughout the district, I think this year I've had maybe 3 calls. And those 3 calls ended up having to do with what would make us maybe be an A-. And that is, we assign our special needs kids to certain schools throughout the district. And as we meet with their parents and decide a proper placement, some of those placements have been in schools with uniforms. So overnight, those parents went from a school without a uniform to a school with a uniform. And I would say if I had any parents that called with concerns, it was that concern. And so we tried to certainly accommodate them, give them plenty of time to fill that requirement, not be hard-nosed about it at all. We also gave them an option if they were a non-special needs student and they objected to uniforms to transfer to another school. I will tell you, I have not had one parent transfer because of uniforms. I've had some parents who thought they might transfer, but I think once they started working with the policy, they decided that it was a workable thing for all parents. I'm going to tell a little story. At the beginning of the year, we have a custom of Mr. Davis and Mr. Beecham and I go out and visit all the schools when we start school. And so Mr. Beecham was telling the story about Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis went through, and they had been through about 4 schools, and he said, you know, I would really like to go visit one of the schools that has a uniform policy. Well, they were about 3 blocks from leaving Woodland Hills. So they had left Woodland Hills, and Mr. Davis had not even realized he was in a school with our uniforms. So that will tell you the success has been the ability to allow kids to have some say about what they put on, and yet give some unity to the school. I have very little discussions about uniforms at all, but today I had 2 opportunities, just serendipitously, to have talks with parents about uniforms. One happened to be a parent who was serving in a meeting I was in. She's actually an employee of Lawton Public Schools, and she just, as an aside, this parent was actually a special needs parent moving into a school with the uniforms, didn't seem to have a concern with it at all, and the teacher said, oh, you're moving to a school with uniforms, you're going to love it. She said, it is so much easier to get my kids ready for school in the morning, and the cost has just been a great savings. You can find a polo type shirt for about $5.95 every single day in Lawton, and she said it makes it very easy, and the fact that you don't care what color it is allowed me to find some on sale this summer. At the end of the day, I had a call about a parent from Woodland Hills was concerned about another issue, and as he got ready, he said, oh, there's another thing I'd like to talk to you about. He said, I just wanted to tell you how much I appreciate the uniforms that you all have put in place this year. He said, my daughter is a 5th grader, and 3 mornings a week, I am responsible as a dad to get her ready and get her to school. And he said, that has been the biggest blessing you could have given me. He said now she's going through a stage where she has decided to wear two different colored socks to school. He said, but that's just fine. She has a choice in the morning of what color socks to wear, but we don't have an argument on what clothes to wear. So I guess I would end with, I can't see a downside. We do need to think in terms of this summer about where we place our special needs classes and make sure we inform parents of that ahead of time and maybe do a little bit better job of that. But all in all, I'd say with a modified dress code, we have been able to make it successful. Yet I think if I have the students, and I'm going to ask all the kids to come up here who came tonight, if you look at them standing across here, you would just see kids who look neatly dressed, who are very, come on up. That stand right up here so they can see. And I think I want to point out the little girl who's wearing a costume today, because I think the other success is schools have been enormously flexible in allowing for days where they can wear costumes, or on Fridays they can wear jeans and t-shirts. But it's given some flexibility to a school, but it's also allowed us to uniform. And what the father also said is, I no longer have to worry. He said, when my kids went to school, there was always the thing about the right brands, even in elementary school. And kids, she would come home and say, oh, my friend went to Dallas and shopped at so-and-so and got new clothes. Well, when you wear non-emblem uniforms, nobody knows what brand your clothes are, and no one cares. So I think if that's the other big bonus, I would say that's that. It's given a ability for us to have kids at school who don't need to worry about what somebody else is wearing or not wearing. So I'll give the kids a second to talk. Anybody here would like to tell them what wearing uniforms is like? This is Erin. Tell me your last name, Erin. Mm-hmm. This is Erin Henry, and she goes to Pioneer Park, and she's going to give you, the non-uniform kid's going to talk about uniform. Do you like wearing uniform? Oh, okay. Do you like uniforms?
Yes.
Do you ever get up in the morning and wish you didn't have to wear them?
Yes.
Okay. Does your mom like uniforms?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I bet she likes them better than you do.
Yes.
Okay. What do you get to choose different every day that makes it feel different than wearing a uniform? Anything? You wear different socks or different?
Yeah. Get to pick a different color.
Anything? What's the worst thing about uniforms? And then we'll you go.
I have to wear the same color every week.
Ah, okay. Any questions you might have? And the principals are here tonight. I'd like to introduce, this is Mr. Prince from Edison, and I have Cheryl Scammahorn from Woodland Hills, her school, Sally Greenlee from Pioneer Park, and Jeannie Aldridge from Sullivan Village. I would say there have been other principals. Mr. Beecham and I haven't had a specific conversation about this, but many general conversations. I think that there are schools in the district who are interested in maybe joining the group, and that's a discussion we can have before next year. But I'd say overall, even an A would not be too high a score for the uniforms. So I have joined the banner and said I think it's a great idea.
First of all, let me say, you got to see a few minutes ago those exceptional high school students. Mm-hmm. These are those same students and preparing to be up there for the same reason.
That's right.
That's right.
We're just as proud of all of you as we were of each one of them.
And good job staying awake even if you did yawn.
And they were hungry.
I know. Good job.
One of the things and one of the reasons we needed to talk to you about this evening, you remember when we did the uniform dress, we talked about we would review it at the middle of the year and make sure that it was doing what we had hoped it would do. And obviously I think you've heard that it's done even better than we had anticipated. We do have parents asking us now, please tell us if we're going to continue this, because we want to buy Christmas clothes in accordance with this, or things for Christmas that are in accordance. And I think obviously we do want to continue at these 4 schools, but as Mrs. Maudlin has shared with you, other principals have said, are we going to have the opportunity to ask our parents this next semester if they would like to do this? And I would say to you, I would like, with your blessing, to get those principals that have an interest, because you certainly need your leadership to be on board, to survey their parents and talk, and we will do something very similar to what, well, we'll do exactly what we've done with the other group. And I would anticipate maybe a little later in the spring, early spring, we would be suggesting to you that we add another 2, 4, 6 schools. I do not think, I don't think going out and doing it all at one time is really going to be the answer, because there's still some concern about various aspects of it, depending on where your child goes to school and just simply the culture in our buildings. Even though we have 24 elementary schools doing the same thing, they do it in 24 different ways and different cultures. So we want to do this in a way that's palatable to parents, so that they can have the benefit of maybe a little lower price than the cost of the clothes. But at the same time, the kids are pretty proud of what they're doing. I would share in defense of Mr. Davis, the kids look so nice that day that you just simply thought, boy, this is wonderful. They're well behaved, they look great, and it just didn't dawn on you that you had put in place a regulation or a guidance mechanism for what they would wear. So I think that's the thing we're looking for. We want our children to learn to present themselves in the very best way they possibly can, and not have stigmas attached, so that everybody's comfortable and everybody has the greatest opportunity available to them. And so with your blessing, I will begin some communications, and then we'll bring back to you any proposal we might have.
Absolutely. Do I need a motion for that?
No, it's actually not agendaed. I just, if I can just have your blessing to have those conversations. And
I would also like to let those parents know we will be continuing.
We will be continuing. Yes, we will.
Thank you.
That's what she needed to know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, kids.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you coming. Thank you. They did. They were so...
As I said earlier this evening, we have wonderful kids everywhere. So thank y'all. Thanks. Yeah, their ability to be unique and yet still conform to a higher standard looks good. There you go. Y'all want to close right now where we're on a high note?
Yeah.
Just go to the house or something?
Yeah, let's go.
That's it. Okay. Going back to item 7B, an information item I would introduce to you this evening, Mrs. Brandstetter. I have asked her to prepare some information regarding a few changes in the budget. Actually, they're not changes. They're information items showing how revenue is coming in, but I want to keep you abreast of this. Our revenue continues to be tight. We've not had additional funding come forward of any significant amounts. However, we have seen some change and some cash flow. So, Mrs. Brandstetter, if you'll share, and I believe that appears on page 2 in the agenda.
Yes, it begins in page 2, and my budget update will start on page 3. So we'll just kind of start there. I did add some other detailed information behind that, and we'll kind of touch on that just a little bit as we go through it. What I wanted to start with saying is the district actually has 11 different funds in all, but tonight we're just going to touch on the general fund, and then in subsequent board meetings after this, we'll kind of touch on some of the other funds as we go through there, so we can kind of get up to date on all of them. Let's start with the general fund. As you know, is our largest fund of all. At the very bottom of it, it tells that our budget is $113,245,100. We have broken it down into 2 different sections. As the years have gone on, it's kind of difficult to understand exactly which parts of it are actually what we consider the district-wide, and then what other grants, local, state, and federal grants that have come back and are underneath it all, which makes it harder to understand exactly where the district portion of it is. And so that's what I've tried to do here, is to separate the two parts of it so you can kind of understand where we're coming from. First of all, at the top it says the district-wide. Under the expenditures, under the budgeted, I separated them, and they are at $95,280,212.96. That information is detailed on page A, which is the next page, and you can see some of the items that fall in that category, that as I'm kind of talking on which ones we are considering to being just the district overall operating budget of the district. Of that $95 million, the district has encumbered, which means we have set aside obligated, $68,579,931.64. Of that, as of October 31st, this data I might say is as of October 31st. We have actually spent $19,879,972.18, which leaves a balance of the budget of $6,820,000. Now, moving across the columns there, total-wise that we have expended is $88,459,000. And the next column over talks about what we have actually paid out, and that's what Mr. Beecham was referring to as our cash flow. We've actually spent $19,879,000. Moving to the right there, I gave some percentages so you could kind of see where we're at. Totally encumbered and expended, we are at 92% of our budget right now. Okay, but if you move to the far right, you'll see that the percentage taking the $19 million that we've actually spent, which is the cash, we have spent nearly 21% of our budget. Now let's go to the next line, and you can kind of understand what we're talking about on the cash flow part of it. Again, the same $95,280,000, again on the revenue side. The next column over will be the collected, meaning actually what have we collected in revenue right now as of October 31st. We've collected $25,162,000. So when you continue over to the right-hand side, we have collected 26% of that $95 million. Okay? So what we consider the district-wide part right now, which is revenue collected from the county, our ad valorem, our state aid, and I might also mention that our ad valorem money, the majority of it is being collected during the months of December, January, and February, okay, which makes it a little bit difficult because our state aid that we collect on a monthly basis, all except for the month of July, we do not collect any in the month of July, it is not sufficient to cover what our obligations are in one given month. So it makes it quite difficult. It's a challenge for us with the ladies in the accounts payable also to maneuver all of it to make sure that there is enough money in various areas in order to meet the payrolls each month because of the way that the different types of revenue come into the district. But as you can see, and the details of all of that, for instance, if you go to page F you can see the different sources of revenue that are considered the district-wide revenue, and we wanted to point out on the impact aid money, which made a big difference in our cash flow. When Mr. Beecham actually attended in October, he was informed of, when we originally set the budget, he had mentioned that we had to reduce our estimated amount of impact aid, and we did. And he was then informed that we were only going to get 45% of our allotment, which was going to really hurt our cash flow during this first 6 months of the year. And we received that money October the 10th, but fortunately then about 3 weeks after that, which ended up being November 6th, we were awarded, or we received the other 35%, making it 70%, which definitely helped our cash flow. As you know, in the last couple of months, our cash flow in the general fund, our fund balance had actually been in the negative, but because of the other funds that we have, the sinking fund, the bond fund, some of that, we maintain all of our funds in the same bank account, so we were still solvent, but it does create some challenges for us to take on. Okay, so back to the summary page. On the non-district-wide area, those are our local grants, they are our state grants, they are our title grants, our special ed grants, our adult education grants, that sort of thing. That's where this $17 million is coming from. So, of their money, they have encumbered $11,834,390, and we have actually spent out $3,760,000 of their money, which leaves them about $2 million left to encumber. So total encumbered and expended, it's $15,595,000, and of that, again, the $3,760,000, they have let me back up. Total wise, they have expended 86% of their budget to date, but actually cash money that we have spent out is about 21%. Now the difference between their money and our money and the way we collect their money, you can see on the next line of their revenue. Of that same $17 million, we've only collected $2 million of the $3 million that they have expended out. So their percentages are off. So they have spent approximately 21% of their budget, but we have only collected about 12%. Submit applications, they have to be approved by the state, and there's a lot of, procedures that have to, and red tape that we have to go through to get them approved, and then at that point we have to submit claims, and the state has actually put in a new system, a grants management system in place to where we now have to actually claim for every one of the title grants once a month, where before I only had to do it once a quarter. So now instead of 4 reports, we have to do 12 reports for all 9 or 10 different grants that we have. So it is time consuming, and it does take time for us to regain back their money that we are actually fronting on their behalf. Now, yes, sir.
And that is part of the issue we've had. One of the things that the state has done to us, and I hate to use those terms, but really it is a bureaucratic issue. Because of this A through F controversy, because of the focus and priority 3 schools and so forth, they have simply held some regulations and some information that will not allow us to even file to get money we're required to pay in these federal grants. The federal grants are not all in a consolidated application, but there is a consolidated application for most of them. Until you can file that and they approve that, which is basically the budget they're approving, you can't turn in a claim to collect anything. But we have to still keep paying the Title I teachers and the Title II programs and so forth. And so that's why there is such a disparity there with having almost 21% of the expenditures out already, but we've only been able to get 11% of the money back. We did this week finally get notification that of what their regulations were going to be. So we will be processing that. Mrs. Brandstetter will have to go back. There are literally going to be, instead of being 4 reports for each grant each quarter, which would be in the neighborhood of about 40 a year, there now are 12 per month, which will be about 120 reports we'll have to file in order to do and collect the same amount of money. It's not, it's an infinite wisdom thing that nobody's figured out yet. But the reality is that even though that looks like we're short $1.6 million, there we're not. We just haven't been able to get them to send it to us. They will do that. And then when we get our ad valorem tax, as she alluded to in December, January, and February, we will actually look like we have a greater amount of money because we'll have cash on hand. However, when we talk about encumbered money, there's three states a dollar in a school district are in. It is either undesignated, which means it's sitting there waiting for you to decide how to spend it. It's encumbered, which means you've already decided how to spend it, you just haven't paid it yet, or it's paid. And so when you see something that says it's encumbered, it's not available to be spent anymore. It's already spent. We just haven't written the check for it. So those numbers may, well, to me, they're frightening. As we talk about it, a lot of things that we talk about on a daily basis and trying to keep track of this, but it's not as bleak as it looks just looking at those numbers as they're presented. It will kind of self-correct as the year goes along, because not getting anything from the state in July, we basically have to pay all of July's bills and all the very first payroll without any kind of revenue coming in. That is why it's imperative that districts have a carryover. And if you'll remember, we haven't had a carryover for about 3 years. We've had to budget our carryover just to sustain our budget, even with the cuts we've made. So just needed to interject that right there, and I apologize for interrupting.
Question two, how far behind are we in getting our funding from the state, from the federal government, or ad valorem, all of those entities that we get them from? Are they behind, or are they timely?
I would say they are timely. You can kind of see that on page F, and as we present them to you each time, each category over here on the side, it'll tell you at what percentage we have collected each one of those categories, each one of those sources of revenue. So I would say that as the collections have come in the last 4 months, I think they are on target. I think they're very well. As a matter of fact, talking about the impact aid money, the amount that we had actually anticipated getting, we ultimately got slightly more than we anticipated, but due to some of the increase and decreases in other areas, we're going to say that's pretty much revenue neutral. We're not going to say we're going to collect anything above and beyond. Yes, we did get a little bit more impact aid than we had anticipated, but because of some of the other revenue sources are slightly down. And that information, I think, is also back in the consent agenda. You can see a little bit more there, too. What Mr. Beecham was alluding to was on page G, though. You can see where all the title programs, and they start in the 500 area. If you'll notice over on the right-hand side, the amount of money received is 0. And until we can get them approved, and we have actually gotten 3 or 4 of them already approved and submitted, so we should be receiving some shortly. As he's mentioned, though, the big one that's kind of grouped together, that's holding the bottleneck up, which is the consolidated application, which is the Title I, the Title II, and that sort of thing. And I think we did get word on that, so we should be able to get that up and running and submitted in just a week or so, I would imagine. So they're ready.
Forget it, I need to make mention of Senator Inhofe and Representative Lucas and Cole all went to bat for us, going to the Secretary of Education to ask him to work with the Impact Aid Department to review the payment schedule that had been developed. And they, along with senators and representatives all across the country, did that, and it did get them to almost double the amount of disbursement they'd make. We didn't get any money we weren't entitled to, but we just got it in a more timely fashion, and it would not have happened without intervention by those folks, and I think they need to get the credit for doing so.
Absolutely.
When it was brought to their attention. So.
Okay, and I have one small other side note I thought was pretty interesting. Back on the summary page, under the district-wide portion, the $19,879,000 that we have actually expended, I took the liberty to calculate how much of that was actually for the payroll and how much of it was for the non-salary portion of it. As of October 31st, we have spent $17 million of it, which is approximately 86% of it going to salaries and benefits, and the other 14% of it going to the non-salary portion. And that is pretty much in line with the original budget that we laid in place in September. Now, on the title grants and that sort of thing, I would say it's a little different. Their percentages are 47% on the salaries and benefits and 53% on the non-salary portions of it. So yes, it does take us time to get those federal grants, but they are benefiting the district tremendously on the non-salary portion, on the technology, on the supplies, and that sort of things in our schools. Okay, any other questions that you might have?
No, thank you, Diane.
Okay.
What I've asked Mrs. Renstetter to do, and she alluded to this when she started, is each month or so, once a month, to bring to you an update of the general fund, but also incorporate one of our other funds in there so that there's no sense in bringing them all to you and saying, look at all of this, because it'll cross your eyes. But it is important, given the current financial situation, that you have knowledge and information regarding this that's current and relevant. And so we'll be doing this about every other meeting, at least one meeting a month.
Right.
And Diane, you've done an excellent job, and appreciate it very much.
We appreciate you doing that for us, too.
Okay. Under item 7C, we have an information item this evening from Mr. Kyle Smith regarding State Department of Education certified annual site dropout report. And then I'll ask Mr. Smith if he'll just go from there into 7D, which is also an information item regarding our ACE remediation program. Mr. Smith?
Like Ms. Brandsetter, I report that our dropout report is lower than our budget, which is a good thing in this case, because if you look through there, that page 1 has Eisenhower High School, and I went back and put a 4-year dropout reports together so you can kind of see the trend there. In all 3 high schools, dropout level has dropped over the last 4 years, which is a great thing. And I think to some extent we can contribute that to several years ago, we had some graduation coaches and we had some extra money to do that. But along with those graduation coaches, we also went to some training on how to keep kids in school. Our counselors participated in that. Some of our assistant principals and principals participated in that. And so we got a lot of good ideas. Even though we don't have graduation coaches anymore, I do think that was a positive and one of the things that you'll see reflected in the dropout reports as you look through those. You also notice that the middle schools, for the most part, do not have very many dropout students because we do a very good job of following up on those kids and making sure that they're in school. And one of the reasons that you'll probably ever see a dropout in middle school is that we just cannot find where they moved, and they did not send for records. Either they stuck them in private school or homeschooled them, and didn't request records from Lawton Public Schools, and so we weren't able to follow up on that. But as you look through that, you will see very few dropouts for the middle schools. Is there any questions? It is.
It is.
That is a tremendous amount of hard work by the school buildings, in particular the high schools, where the challenge is greater than we want to believe, to be real honest. And, they're doing a wonderful job, and I know we keep saying this, but we are their hope in many instances, and we've got to stay with them and not give up on them. And I think that reflects that we're doing a good job of that.
I think so too. And I think just by looking at our summary report, we see that as we as a district have sort of made that commitment to our students, that it's gotten better. And you can see there's 0% in the middle schools now. It's just wonderful. You're tracking everyone, and that's good to see.
Exactly, and it kind of bucks the trend across the nation with the economy being so bad. You've seen more high school kids drop out and get jobs to help support the family, and so we've kind of bucked that trend. I know Oklahoma City and some of the larger school districts have had an increase in their dropouts during this period. So we've kind of we really look good because of the way the economy has gone and the trend in dropouts in high school, and we've shown that our principals and counselors have done a great job of keeping those kids in school.
Thank you, Kyle.
If there's not any questions on that, my second report for you is over our remediation, our ACE remediation across the district. If you'll look on the second page there, it identifies the number of students who participated in remediation. Of course, this is only the third year that we've done this report. In the first year, we really didn't have any numbers to report on our remediation report, and so really this is only our second year of actually reporting numbers. They changed it this year last year we only had to report the total number of students that we had and the total number of students that participated. This year they made it do it by the State Department of Education asked us to do it by subject area, and so you can kind of see what subjects the students were remediated in and how many participated. You will notice that subjects that are required for high school graduation, Algebra 1 is one of the key areas that we work on, and English 2 is one of the key areas we work on. Those subject areas like U.S. History, Algebra 2, which are some of the harder EOI tests, those students generally shy away from remediation in that area. They'll get an EOI subject in Geometry or English 3, which are two that have a fairly high pass rate for remediation. So that's some of the discrepancies in numbers there. I will tell you the total this year was 2,394 students who qualified for ACE remediation. We had 1,423 that participated in ACE remediation. The other pages indicate what we're doing as far as items 2 through 7, kind of the strategies that we're using in each one of those areas, what we found to be most effective. I will ask you to turn to page 4 and ask you to look at item number 8. That indicates the number of students who have passed EOI, OCT, or OMAP, or a portfolio assessment during this past year. You'll notice that we had 18 that scored advanced after remediation. We had over 500 students that scored proficient after remediation in those subject areas. And of course, a lot of students that have failed more than 4 or 5 EOIs, you know, they will concentrate on Algebra 1 and English 2, English 3, and Geometry, because those are usually the ones that are the easier ones to pass. And so they'll, Algebra 2, even though they may qualify in Algebra 2 and U.S. History, they won't receive remediation in those areas on that. Any questions about remediation?
Just to remind the board, Algebra 1 and English 2 are required in the construction test. The other 5, they simply have to pick to pass. Have to pass 2 5. So the number of Algebra 1 and English 2 will always be, because everybody has to pass. They'll always be great. But you'll remember back in the spring, when we took our during summer, we had 95+% rate passing, which immediately all
Outstanding.
If we go back to number 1, it talks about, you know, they've broken down the different categories of the tests, and then you see in the 8th grade math and the 8th grade reading where we have more students there that participated in remediation. Will we be targeting those areas?
Yeah, you will see that 9th grade math and 9th grade reading are listed there. Those are primarily those students. Once they get to high school, they failed the CRT in 8th grade math or 8th grade reading, they will be students that we target as 9th grade math and 9th grade reading remediation students, because there's really there's not an EOI subject in 9th grade math or 9th grade reading. You know, we have a lot of kids that take Algebra 1 in math, but if they failed the 8th grade CRT test, we're not going to put them in Algebra 1 as a 9th grader. And we're going to put them in a remediation class, or we're going to put them in a pre-algebra class that's going to help them be prepared to take the Algebra 1 test.
When do we get these these numbers, or when do we know, like, their CRT results? Enough time to maybe send them through a summer school remediation?
We have remediation over the summer. One of the problems that we have with the State Department of Education is that the reports and the reporting of test scores has not been very consistent, and it fluctuates from year to year. And we've been lucky enough that you know, by the time we get to graduation date, you know, the end of May, that we've for the most part gotten our scores back, so we can let those kids graduate and get them a diploma kind of thing. But we will, of course, identify those kids before summer school starts and offer remediation to them during the summer. We also offer remediation to them during the fall and the spring at all 3 high schools and the middle schools.
project we're doing with the internet school?
The
The Odyssey.
Odyssey, will that also
IDI
offer
program, yes. That's part of
remediation?
the remediation.
Great, great.
Yeah, we-
Okay.
There are actually, we test in April, we hope to get the scores back before graduation to let them know where they stand. Those that don't pass can do summer remediation. We test again in August, so they can take the test in August, if they can pass them, they've got that taken care of. Then we test again in December after first semester remediation, so that they really have 3 times a year that they can do this, and they can take it till they pass it.
Yeah, they can take it 3 times a year when that's scheduled. And we're hopefully optimistic this year because they've changed testing companies, and maybe we're keeping our fingers crossed we will get the test results back in a more timely manner than it's been in the past. They've told us 2 or 3 week turnaround on test scores, and it's been 2 or 3 months before we got them back, or at least 2 months before we've got them back. And so we're hopefully optimistic that the test scores will improve as far as when we get them back. Okay. Thank you. All right.
Consideration and action regarding the proposed revision of adoption following policy. Policy is harassment and discrimination. As you're well aware, there was many conversations between the state board association relationship with this school. That is a very and so we are required, and we've always had that policy, we're required now by statute to amend those policies or make sure those policies are in compliance with certain things that previously were not outlined. And we have done, the policy is actually FNCD, it is here in page 18, 19, and 20. Relatively short policy that contains a tremendous amount of information and very specific about what we're talking about when we say harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Then on page 21, there's about 21 through 22 is FNCD Tech T, and which is basically procedurally what we're going to do based on those actions that are described in this policy. And then the regulations are stated on page 23 through 28. A lot of that is redundant language, but it's written in a format about when this or if this is what's going on, this is what action will be taken, the process that will be followed. So it's a very well-written policy. Mr. Smith and Mrs. Ellis have worked diligently on this. We have a policy that takes, provides protection that our children deserve, and I also think that we have one that is enforceable and manageable, and that's pretty critical. Bogged down in a lot of language that never allows you to change the letter. So, if you have any questions, we're more than happy to answer that, or I'll try to answer already that you might add.
Does this refer to just a student, or does this refer to staff members, or bullying maybe by another staff member, or a student bullying a staff member?
Most of the action refers to student bullying, but it does take into context that there are other kinds of staff and others with parent involvement as well.
Okay.
So it will cover the
Good.
entire gamut. It covers new statute that was entered into action in September of 2012, so that we have now a way that we can delineate how we report and what we are looking for when we talk about the bullying process.
Do you have any plans to incorporate any of the language in the student handbook?
Yes, it will be placed in the student handbook for the 2013 school year.
Very good.
Pardon me, the 2014 school year. But every time we change anything with the bullying policy or the student code policies, those also have to be presented to the students after the adoption.
Okay, thank you.
I wanted to thank you for such a comprehensive job. I think you and Mr. Smith did a wonderful job, so thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Very good job.
Agreed.
I will move for approval.
And I will second.
Call the roll, please.
Ms. Ronio?
Yes.
Ms. John?
Yes.
Mr. Sharam?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
Point of information that we're required by statute to submit that to the state so that they have our policy on file. Item 7G, I'm asking you to consider the action to acknowledge a written recommendation from the superintendent to the board terminating the employment of Margaret Longer as personal care assistant. The action set a date, time, and place for a hearing and presentation. At this point, Chuck, if we come up with a date that we want to use December 10th, an appropriate date.
December 10th is fine.
Okay, I was thinking something else. I would propose to you to do it on December 10th, the next school board, and do it at 5 o'clock, or immediately following this, the board meeting. And that's written.
Move for approval.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Ms. Ronio?
Yes.
Ms. John?
Yes.
Mr. Sharam?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes.
And item 7F, we no longer need a hearing, and my understanding is that there was no request filed for.
That is the case for items
Oh, okay. I was unaware of these, so I'll make sure that we get on the thing. But I have time for more funding too. And that's all I have for you this evening. I apologize for the length of the meeting, however, I thought the things needed to be there are not things that just be done through internet communication or phone calls. That's all I have for you.
Okay, do we have any items that need to be pulled from the consent agenda?
No.
No. No.
Entertain
Move
a
for
motion.
approval.
Second?
Call the roll, please.
Ms. Ronio?
Yes.
Mr. Sharam?
Yes.
Ms. John?
Yes.
Mr. Jester?
Yes. Okay. Superintendent's personnel report.
I would ask you to vote to approve employing, promoting, disciplining, or receiving resignations of individuals certified and support salary personnel listed on pages 166 and 167.
Move for approval.
Second. Call the roll, please.
Ms. John?
Yes.
Mr. Sharam?
Yes.
Ms. Ronio?
Yes.
And Mr. Jester?
Yes. Do we have any new business to consider? Next board meeting date is set for December 10th here at the Shoemaker. Are there any other dates we need to set for board meetings? Any announcements?
I do have really wonderful. Let me make, I've got three.
I will, a minute.
At the direction of the board, after the last meeting, I was asked to contact the OSSBA to inquire, making a preliminary contact with the board regarding hiring my replacement, hiring the superintendent. And I've done that. They will be present and on site on December 10th, since we've got that board meeting. They will bring you options and like that, so.
And those are non-Title I schools?
No, actually, all of those are non-Title I schools. And all presented proposals, presented to the foundation. The second item is through the Oklahoma Strategic Military Planning. We had, about 3 months ago, retired Major General Dave Lawton, who sits on the commission, contacted me and said, "When I have some money, write me a proposal and let me see if I can carry it for you." So I got busy and got him a proposal, and we were notified that we received $226,000, which will all be expended on basically improvements in technology for the most part. Because it is the State Military Planning Commission, the two schools at Fort Sill will get roughly 60% of that. However, the next four schools in the district having the largest number of military students also are deemed eligible, and they will be getting grants. So we will be able to put any place in the neighborhood of 4 to 6 smart boards in each one of those schools as a result of that grant. So
Fantastic.
it is another blessing we've received, and we're very thankful for it. We're thankful to General Lawson for thinking of it. That money can be spent on the city, it can be spent on the school district, and just simply through his good heart and willingness to want to step up and help us. He contacted us and gave us something to provide for. So I think we owe both the Walton Foundation, who that grant was worked through Mr. David Madigan, who's another one of the supporter of the school district. People throughout our community stepping up and helping us, and it's really a neat thing to see. And when we get the kind of results that we got, boy, it's fun to talk about, fun to see, and fun to know that people care and get involved.
Very good.
I sent Mr. Ralston a text message to tell him thank you, and he said, "Absolutely, you're welcome. It's the least I can do." So he was very, very gracious in saying it was the right thing to do.
He is very humble. But there were some other requests for that money from other entities in our locale, but they had to do with roads and sewers. I think we made the right decision in order to put the money.
Yeah, we did.
For
We did.
children.
Very good.
So he is a very good advocate for our children.
We owe him a debt of gratitude for sure.
And Mr. Madigan.
Yes, and Mr. Madigan.
All those people that support us every day that don't do it for any recognition.
Right.
Neither of those gentlemen do anything for recognition. They did it because it's right for children.
I have an announcement. My son, who was a commended national merit at Eisenhower High School, just informed me that he's been accepted into OSU Medical School.
Oh, right.
Awesome.
And he will be interviewing next week after Thanksgiving at OU Medical School, so maybe he'll get a
Very
choice. So, excited about that.
That's wonderful.
Congratulations.
Congratulations
To him, yes.
Any other announcements?
Hard work.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Chester,
Yes.
Ms. Romeo,
Yes.
Ms. John,
Yes.
Mr. Sharon.
Yes.